So thanks everyone. I think this the photo here is apropos, at least for the lower mainland today, because it's raining and it's a little bit dark, and it's exactly what the riders in the photo that you see there. So thanks everyone across the province. We did a little pre-webinar poll of where you are, and we are right across the province. We currently have close to, it's getting up to 200 people on the call, and I think we're going to be close to 500 probably by the time everyone gets their sandwiches or soup or whatever, and gets to sit down for this lunchtime presentation, but from the BC Cycling Coalition. So I'm your moderator, Mike Koski. I'm the executive director here at the BC Cycling Coalition, and Samantha Joy is our manager of outreach and communications and pretty much everything else. So she'll be introducing the speakers and getting through with the speakers. So I'm not going to take too much time in the intro, because we've got a lot of stuff to go through. Huge amount of interest in this subject, as everyone knows. So welcome everyone. Hopefully this will be very informative for you all. Get to the next slide. So I just wanted to say that to start out with, we'd like to acknowledge that we are fortunate to be able to host this webinar on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and also acknowledge their relationship with the land that continues to this day. And I know from, again, the pre-webinar poll that many of you are also attending as a guest on unceded traditional territories of local First Nations and Indigenous people. So again, welcome to the seminar from all over the province. And hopefully there'll be a lot of members on the call today, but for those of you who are not members, the BC Cycling Coalition, or what we'd like to say it as BCCC, is a not-for-profit member-based society. We've been around a long time. We do help to provide a voice for active transportation education in BC. We run Kids on Wheels program. We talk to governments almost weekly now about their active transportation planning, their active transportation grants, safer cycling, safe passing legislation, and a host of other things. So we really hope to help change and help listen to all of the regions of BC to what your needs are. So because we're a limited staff with a lot of heart, we always ask that if you could please donate to the BCCC so we can keep hosting webinars like this. And a little bit of surprise maybe for everyone that's on the call who can join us today. We're now signed up to well over 200 people, so that's a lot of work for Samantha and I to get the books out. But whoever signs up to the webinar and who signs up to be a member today at BCCC and or renews your membership after today, we'll send you a free copy of our Bike Sense 7th edition. So that is a free gift for you for joining us today for this info session. And just some quick info for today's webinar. We're recording this session, and the recording will be posted on our website after the webinar is over. Each of our four guests have prepared some information that we hope will last up to about 10 minutes. And I know Samantha is going to introduce all our four speakers, but I just want to thank them personally myself for taking time out of their lunch hours and presenting today from a vast number of different topics that I think from everyone that has written into BC Cycling Coalition with your questions in the last month. I hope to cover off all of your questions through the guest speakers. And if we don't answer them all, we're going to have Q&As at the end of the sessions after all four speakers have presented. And there's a Q&A button on the Zoom feature that you can ask, and I'll try to get through as many of them as I can. If I can't get through them all, we'll keep the questions, or you can write in specifically to the BC Cycling Coalition with your specific question and who the question is being directed to. And again, we'll do our best to accommodate that and respond to you as quickly as possible. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Samantha Joy to introduce our speakers and get going. Samantha.
Thanks, Mike. Just thought I'd share the poll quickly, some interesting numbers. Most of you are from Metro Vancouver today, but we do have some representation from around BC. And I love the number of 25% of you use your bike as your primary vehicle. That's awesome. 35% cycle commuters. Some of you are fair weather cyclists. That's great too. Very practical in Vancouver. So those are some great numbers, and we're so happy to have you all here. The speakers today, fantastic speakers. We've got Bill Semrau, who works with Arthur J. Gallagher Canada and provides insurance for Cycling BC members. David Hay, who's a senior litigation lawyer with Richard Spiel Sutton. Paul Sedicassi, Director of Recovery Services in the Claims Division at ICBC. And Nick von Egmond, who's the founder of Bicycle Broker Insurance. We'll get started with Bill from Arthur J. Gallagher to talk to you about insurance for Cycling BC members.
Thanks, Samantha. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. And my video is off. I'm not sure if, oh, there we go. Start my video. Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me and welcome everyone. It's nice to speak with you. As said, my name is Bill Semrau with Gallagher in Canada. We're one of the world's largest insurance brokers. In Canada, we represent over 900 professional and amateur sport associations. I'm so well versed in sport insurance. I've been in insurance for almost 25 years now, I guess, in a variety of roles, including claims, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, and then personal insurance. And then I've been at Gallagher and our predecessor company, Jones Brown, since 2007. Specifically here today to talk to you about insurance for Cycling BC members. So Cycling BC, and some of you may be familiar with Cycling BC as the sport organization, has a number of policies that are set up for Cycling BC members. There is a commercial general liability policy, which I think is probably of interest to most people on the call today, based on some of the recent news, and certainly, that Mike and Paul will speak to, with ICBC taking a run at and no offense, Paul, taking a run at a rider that was involved in a motor vehicle situation, and I've got a number of clients that's happened to as well, that didn't make the news. And so part of what I'll talk to you about today will be just basically the Cycling BC policy, but then I'll also kind of chime in as needed, as Paul and Mike speak and Nick speak as well. But Cycling BC has a policy, commercial general liability policy, which provides coverage during sanctioned club rides and races. So if you are taking part in a Cycling BC race or a sanctioned club ride, and you're involved in an incident where you have a collision with a vehicle or with an individual that's walking across a crosswalk, or on the side of a road, then the Cycling BC policy will step in to defend you. So if you're sued as a result, or someone says, you owe us for something that happened to this, then that policy will respond, will defend you, and will pay for any claim up to $10 million, assuming that it is taking place during a sanctioned club ride. As well, there is a ride accident policy, which provides coverage for some out-of-pocket medical expenses. I'm a bike racer myself, so I race on the road and I ride mountain bikes. And so, the typical claims for this would be for kind of out-of-pocket medical expenses. So again, quite often, you're paying for Tegaderm, if anyone's familiar with that, to put on your hips and your elbows, and then physiotherapy and chiropractic as well. There's an accidental injury and a permanent injury component to that policy as well. Now, the question comes up is what if the ride is not sanctioned, and what happens if you're just the incident takes place during a commute? The Cycling BC policy will provide coverage for your injuries. So that ride accident policy, again, it's not meant to be full disability benefits like you would get from work, but it provides some measure of a cash settlement for that. But we'll pay for your out-of-pocket medical. So again, your physio and your chiropractic, if it takes place, on the bike anywhere in North America, so long as the treatment takes place in Canada. On the liability policy, the liability policy will only apply if the incident takes place during a sanctioned club ride or during a sanctioned ride or race. So a lot of the fondos are sanctioned. If you're racing the crit series or the spring series, or you're racing a downhill series or a cross country mountain bike series, cyclocross, those are all sanctioned rides. If you're a member of a big cycling club, so say Glotman Simpson or something like that, those club rides are sanctioned. So if something happens on that ride that you get sued for, that policy will defend you. But if you're just riding during your commute, the Cycling BC policy will not apply and will not defend you. So, what happens in that case, it will generally go to your home insurance or your renter's insurance. And so that those homeowners policies will defend you. I would, suggest speaking with your broker, and I can chime in on this in the Q&A section later, but I would suggest speaking with your broker that places your home insurance or your renter's insurance, and make sure that your policy will respond. It should. Most policies do. You may have to check with them on e-bikes. That's an issue. Some insurance companies will cover those, some won't. So I would definitely check with your broker. And if you don't have home insurance or you don't have renter's insurance, then I would suggest that you do speak with a broker. Nick will be speaking later on about the policies that he can provide. And I would suggest speaking with Nick and he can help you out to get coverage placed. That's for your liability. On the damage to your bike, there is no coverage under the Cycling BC policy for damage to your bikes. So if your frame is broken during an incident, you break a wheel, and you've got you obviously need to get your bike back in the road. If a fair number of your bike is your primary transportation, so you have to get it going again. Again, that would go on your home insurance. I would, again, speak with your broker about the coverage for bikes on your home insurance. Make sure that you've got an appropriate limit. Some of them have a $2,000 limit or a $3,000 limit, which doesn't do for a lot of bikes, particularly e-bikes. So I would make sure that you've got an appropriate limit. Again, if you don't have that coverage, I know that Nick, and speaking from Bicycle Broker, that was speaking at the end of the seminar, I know that he can provide that. So I'll allow him to speak to that. But that is in summary, that's the Cycling BC policy. And again, I can chime in as the others speak or during Q&A. And that's it for me there, Samantha.
And thank you. Thanks so much, Bill. And I was just going to, I know Samantha's going to kill me because we said we'd ask questions at the very end for everybody. But just you spoke so well. And I just had one question that came in here, a couple of questions I can ask you in advance before the end. Can you define what a sanctioned ride means?
So it would be a club. So I'm a member of a club. So at the start of the year, we tell Cycling BC that, on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays and Saturday mornings, we have club rides. That's really all it takes for sanctioning. And so Cycling BC would say, okay, that I'm a member of BG Factory Racing. Okay, BG Factory Racing races and rides on these days. And so then you've got coverage. If, again, an organized ride. So a lot of organized rides and races. So, the Toonie series on the North Shore, for mountain biking, or the Spring series for road cycling, or the cyclocross series. Those are all sanctioned by Cycling BC as well. You can check with the event organizer if they've sanctioned it. But most organized events in the Lower Mainland and throughout BC tend to be sanctioned. And so, again, I would suggest checking, but generally that's how it works.
Okay, that's great. Hopefully that answers that question. And one more for you, and then we're going to go on to the next speaker.
Sure.
Did this one come up for you, Samantha? Or do you want me to ask it? Oh, you're on mute. I'll just quickly ask it, because this is kind of timely. So I thought it would be a good one to answer now. Is the Tour de Cure, the Ride to Conquer Cancer ride, insured for participants for 2022 ride in Chilliwack?
That I don't know. I would suggest checking with Cycling BC and just make sure that is. Now, sometimes, and speaking not as the Cycling BC broker, those organizations may have participant coverage as well. There's obviously, we can talk about this for an hour, and certainly anyone can reach out to me afterwards if they'd like, and make sure that my contact's available. But generally, organizers will have participant liability on an event like that if they're insuring it separately. I would ask the organizers and just ask them if they've sanctioned it with Cycling BC, and they'll be able to tell you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill. So
Yeah,
we did get a whole bunch more questions, so we may circle back to you at the end.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I mean, happy to speak. Again, I talk for about an hour on this stuff, so I'm conscious of shutting up early, so I will. But happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, Samantha. Back to you.
Oh, it's okay. Well, we'll move on to David Hay here. So there he is. So David Hay, senior litigation lawyer with Richards Buell Sutton. Hi, David.
All right, thank you, Mike and Samantha and everybody at BCCC. Very pleased to be here. I've been a bike lawyer for about 35 years. Seen a lot of changes, good and bad. I identify as old, at least in as much as bike law is concerned. So I intend to be very direct today. I hope I don't cause any offense. I'm proud to be on this panel and associated with the good work they do. And for the record, I have many friends at ICBC. I worked for them in the 80s and early 90s before fully embracing my role as Vancouver's bike lawyer. So my hope is my comments will be received with that in mind. My perspective is an honest one, coming from a place of real concern for the legal rights of cyclists in this province. And in the last 2 years, we have seen the largest single instance of a government denying access to justice for British Columbians in this province's history. And let me explain that in relation to the vast interest in the subject of insurance for cyclists. That interest, of course, has been rekindled by Mr. Bollinger's experience. You'll all know probably that he was a cyclist seriously injured at the hands of a motorist, and much ink was spilled on social media and in the press about ICBC's pursuit for damage to a car arising from an accident which appeared on the face of it to involve a genuine dispute as to who was at fault. The cyclist sustained serious injuries, and a bill in the mail came for property damage, and that added, of course, insult to injury. So after a substantial backlash on social media and picked up by the press, ICBC resolved from that position, and in an apparent attempt to mollify the angry mob, it stated that in the future it would only pursue property damage to its insured vehicles from cyclists and pedestrians in cases not involving severe or catastrophic injuries, or in cases where liability cannot be decided, so the parties were assigned equal blame. And what seems to have struck the public is the temerity of ICBC sending a seriously injured cyclist a bill for property damage in circumstances where liability was far from clear, and given the allegation the motorist ran a stop sign on a bike lane. What is more astonishing to me, however, is the victory lap that some cyclists appear to be doing following ICBC's decision not to add insult to injury. What seems to have been forgotten in the wake of this perceived triumph is that the cyclist's serious injuries remain unaddressed and the motorist's conduct unaccountable. This is a result of no-fault insurance introduced in 2020 by the Attorney General and embraced by the motoring lobby and their insurers as a progressive new model for those unfortunate souls injured at the hands of a negligent driver. Let's consider the old system very briefly and the new system to understand what's been lost and what's been gained. Under the old system, a cyclist injured at the hands of a negligent motorist would be entitled to bring a claim for damages against the motorist. And in the context of that claim, liability would be sorted out, settled, or tried in a court of law. The cyclist would never receive a bill for damage to the car. The damage to the car was, as a matter of practice, largely ignored for the simple reason that the bodily injury claim would eclipse any concerns about a hood or a windshield. ICBC would never pursue a cyclist in any case except where liability is extremely obvious. And by that, I mean if you hit the back of a stationary vehicle, they might look at pursuing you. But even in those cases, rarely so for the fear of awakening an injury claim. So they were content to let sleeping cyclists lie, as it were. Property damage claims were subsumed within the larger picture of a personal injury claim and governed by a liability finding within that larger context. Failing settlement of liability and damages, the cyclist had access to a court of law. Now, the scrapping of that system, we call the tort system, and removal of a cyclist's rights to pursue the insured driver in negligence and access a court of law resulted in ICBC having no downside in his pursuit of property damage, as unseemly as that may seem or be. After all, what's the cyclist going to do? His or her sword has been removed. So what will they fight with? So let's understand what no fault is. It's simple. You, the insured cyclist, cannot bring a claim for damages against a motorist for pain, suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, or income loss, past or future, regardless of the nature and extent of your injuries, and regardless of the degree of negligence involved, which caused your injuries. You do have a claim for rehabilitation benefits, and our colleague from ICBC will tell you about that, which includes a measure of income replacement up to an income cap. But you always had that in the old system. Under the new model, you get really a very similar access to the benefits that you enjoyed under the old model, and they were called no fault or Part 7 benefits. Now, the amount of the benefits has changed, and in theory, it's higher in the sense that there was a $300,000 cap, and that has been removed. But when asked in the legislature how many people would ever threaten that cap on an annual basis in the province of British Columbia, David Eby said a handful, like 5. So the increase of that cap is a bit of it's a reality in catastrophic cases, and it's a good thing in catastrophic cases, but for the vast majority of people, it makes no difference. And remember, those benefits are what we call no-fault benefits paid under the old system and now the new system were always paid at ICBC's discretion and continue to be paid at ICBC's discretion. The only difference is under the old system, you could challenge that discretion in a court. So if your therapy or income replacement was cut off, you had access to independent judges. Presently, if you don't agree with the removal of those benefits, you have access to a government-staffed civil resolution tribunal. Now, why is this, for me, a big removal of our rights, and why is it such a bad bargain? It's a bad bargain for cyclists because cyclists account for less than 7% of injury claims in BC, and many don't drive a car at all. The purpose of no-fault insurance ostensibly was to save money and reduce premiums. Unfortunately, the wholesale loss of civil rights in exchange for savings on premiums is unfair to cyclists and anyone injured in an accident. Cyclists are vulnerable road users, and they should not have to bear the burden of a motorist insurer trying to save money. And folks, this is very real. In case anyone thinks it's theoretical, a 66-year-old cyclist was recently struck on the island by a driver who made an illegal exit from a highway. He's quadriplegic, and his care needs exceed the monthly limits for his home care, which are $10K. He has no remedy for damages, including pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, loss of opportunity to earn income, or damages for out-of-pocket expenses, including care. He and his family are left to decipher hundreds of pages of regulation related to enhanced care to get access to his significant rehab needs without counsel, I might add. And that's another story, but it's very difficult in these cases now where there's no damages claim to retain counsel or have access to justice. And this is overwhelming for most people. With the greatest respect to my fellow panel members, if insurance isn't available and the adjuster refuses to pay for needed care or wage benefits, the injured party has virtually no remedy and is left to apply to a government staff civil resolution tribunal. So consider younger workers or people for whom English is a second language, or children, the elderly, historically unrepresented groups in the workforce, including women and minorities. Their income is replaced based on the circumstances at the time of the accident, not the opportunities they have. If a medical student is injured and she catastrophically and can never work again, her income is replaced at her part-time minimum wage salary that she was earning to get through school, not her expected income as a physician. So, huge problem for me, and I'm glad I can express myself today on this subject.
And David, can I just jump in quickly? Can you move your microphone, or is there someone in there that can move your microphone just a bit closer to you, just for your finishing points?
Sure.
I know there's a.
How's that?
Is that better for everybody? I hope so.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
I can
Give that a try, 'cause I didn't want you to miss your last points there. That's great. Thanks.
Finally, one of accountability. The motorist who rendered the island cyclist a quadriplegic is completely unaccountable. He has the same rights as the cyclist. So fault is irrelevant in that case. There's no need for an investigation as to what happened. No need to examine the facts so as not to repeat them. Absent criminal conduct, the police really do a fairly cursory investigation because they regard it as a civil matter. Well, there is no more civil system. So there's an enormous gap in the system, and I'm so hoping that some light gets in. It's a very dark world at the moment. On the subject of insurance, I would say that certainly in light of what I said, a cyclist ought to seek every possible opportunity for private coverage, which, however, can be expensive. Third-party coverage has always been a prudent way of protecting yourself against claims by other people. And as Bill mentioned, that can be available through a household policy. But it now appears you need it vis-a-vis cars. And what do you do if you, in terms of a third-party policy? I'd be interested in what the panel thinks. I mean, you used to go to your auto plan agent and say, give me the max because that's the best deal in town. Give me $5 million. Do you actually even need $5 million anymore? Because you certainly don't need it to protect yourself against claims brought by cyclists or pedestrians. So short of hitting a building, why do you even need the $5 million limit? So thank you for letting me express myself in a context other than the media. I haven't actually directly articulated my thoughts to the BCCC, and I'm very glad to do so. Hopefully I haven't ruffled any feathers.
Good to have everyone speaking to these points because that's why we're here. Everyone's got some confusion. It's a system that's going to have some growing pains, and we all need to figure out how to move forward. So appreciate your comments. So we'll move on to Paul Sedikasi, who is the Director of Recovery Services in the Claims Division of ICBC. Paul, do you want to start your video?
My video, can you see me? Because I think it's up and started.
Yeah, you're up. Thanks.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
Good. Thank you very much. And it is a pleasure to speak to you all today. And likewise, an honor to be part of the panel. I've worked, having been at ICBC for almost 22 years, I've certainly worked with David in the past, and appreciate his view on these things. So when we think about the significant changes at ICBC on May 1st, 2021, so just over a year ago now, the new insurance model that is called enhanced care came came into effect here in British Columbia. So some of the goals of enhanced care were to create more affordable premiums, to significantly improve benefits for those injured in car accidents. And, the last tenet here, it's care for as long as you need it. So a couple of items here. So one of the things, we operate under government mandate. So the government sets our legal framework, and right now our framework tells us that we sell insurance for motor vehicles. However, under enhanced care, all cyclists have access to the same full range of benefits. And so that includes things like care, recovery, and income benefits, plus additional compensation and benefits if seriously injured. Likewise, if you're not responsible for the crash, and I know you heard from others on the panel as well, but if you're not responsible, you are also entitled to claim damages for your bike and personal items in a motor vehicle accident. Next slide, please, Mike. Thank you. So just to dig in.
Sorry, Paul, it's Bill Semra here. Just a quick question on the bikes.
Sure.
And sorry don't want to derail you. If there's damages for the bike, would you look at that in a fault? Like, does it have to be 100% the vehicle's fault, or would you pay 100% for the bike if it was 50-50 fault application? I would assume not, but
yeah, no, it typically follows the percent of liability.
Yep, gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so digging into a little bit more around enhanced care to give you more information. So one of the key reform pillars is under enhanced care, there is no overall limit to the medical and rehabilitation benefits available to every British Columbian. And David did mention this. So this is a significant improvement on the previous level of 300,000. And I think one very key point I want to make here is this is regardless of liability. So everyone injured in a motor vehicle accident, regardless of who caused it, is entitled to the same care and recovery benefits. They are available to everyone. So that's, for me, one of the key changes in our systems. So there is increased coverage for customers versus our old product. For customers to get the treatments and support they need. Some examples of this is we have increased amounts for physiotherapy, chiropractor, massage therapy, supports like counseling, dental care, medication, and medical devices or equipment. There's new coverage for things like grief counseling, in the event, of any fatalities in a motor vehicle accident. In addition, significant amounts are available for alterations needed for any vehicles or homes, and this could include things like ramps, stair lifts, bathroom alterations. And there's also a whole suite of benefits that are available to help our injured customers with household supports, personal care during recovery. And again, the limits in these are much higher than they have been in previous versions of our products. More than just providing, the care, providing care when the injured person needs it. It also, and I mentioned this earlier, provides the care for as long as they need it. And, as David pointed out, this is especially important if you are seriously or catastrophically injured in a car crash. Your care needs are likely to last much, much longer, and in many cases in these situations for your lifetime. So in addition to limitless care benefits, wage loss payments have more than doubled under enhanced care. There's also significantly new types of wage loss products. So this includes products if you're self-employed, if you are a student, if you're a family caregiver or a retiree. And again, you do have new options to cover income or time loss over and above the available amounts under enhanced care as well. And that's something that wasn't available before. Next slide, please, Mike. So David stole some of my my notes on here, and so the aforementioned case that was certainly very public, and I do want to be clear here. This was unintended. This was something that wasn't considered as part of the design. But we're here. I'm here today to certainly tell you that what happened in this scenario wasn't reflective of our values in this new care-based model. And that's why this policy change came about. So essentially, we listened to the concerns raised on this issue and met with both the BC Cycling Coalition and Hub Cycling to help revise what our policy looks like. And again, a lot of the details David already mentioned here. So moving forward, in instances when we may seek recovery of costs from cyclists or pedestrians will be much more limited. So we will not seek recovery for costs in some clearly defined situations, including when the cyclist has suffered severe or catastrophic injuries, or when the liability is 50-50, because there simply is not enough evidence to determine exactly what happened. Most importantly, any cyclist injured in a crash, and I mentioned this earlier, with a motor vehicle is entitled to receive all the care and recovery benefits, regardless of fault, under enhanced care. Again, one of the significant changes between the past model and this one. And that's my whirlwind tour here of enhanced care. Thanks, Samantha.
That is very helpful, super helpful. Thank you for presenting. And I know we've got lots of questions for you at the end, so stick around. We'll move on to Nick Van Egmond, who's the bicycle broker insurance. Nick, are you ready to go?
You're going to have to give us a second here because I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then Nick, can you share yours? There we go.
Great.
All right. Thank you to the BCC cycling community and for the invite to this panel. As mentioned, I'm Nick, founder of Bicycle Broker Insurance, which is British Columbia's resource for cycling-specific insurance. We are offering reviews on risk exposure, relevant safety services, and insurance policies for businesses and everyday bike enthusiasts. With a rapidly growing number of new bike riders, our brand is built for guidance and consultation. Partnering with legal, medical, and industry professionals, we offer a selection of thoughtfully designed policies for cyclists. So thanks to years of experience working behind the scenes with professional athletes, major events, associations, retailers, we're now brokering our services to the general public, rider-owned company with programs tested on the world stage. Today, I'm here to provide an overview of insurance options for cycling enthusiasts across BC. The principal topic will be on our comprehensive bike plan, which is built for the community. It's a la carte policies for you and your bike, because your bike deserves better. So why a bike plan? Well, a lot of people on this call, that's a statement we get, right? Your bike is worth more than your car, or you don't have one. In the last 3 years, bicycle prices have inflated by upwards of 25%. The rise of e-bikes have further increased what is an average bike value from an insurance policy perspective, as well as the repair bills if a claim is involving damages to the bicycle. And obviously, high-value bikes continue to be an easy target for theft. So with us, it's a standalone policy where typical homeowner insurance or tenant insurance doesn't give you coverage. If you were to get into a collision, you could be on the hook for damages, theft, liability, injury, the topics of today's conversation. So bike plan is three mechanisms, three functions. The first is liability. At a low cost, we're starting at $1 million. This panel is really helping the design of, do we need to go higher in this dynamic? We can easily look at manual applications to bring it up to 5 million, but $30 a year is a starting point for a policy with just one bike and just one individual. So a good entry point to liability. Second function is personal accident. So with liability responding to the third-party damages, this section is for you and personal injuries sustained from a bike crash. Again, it's a low-cost entry point. It's got benefits for the traumatic injuries up to $50K, and then a short-term up to $500 a week disability. And then separately, if we want to get into a dialogue, a discussion about increasing these benefits, we can do that outside of bike plan. And the third function is the bike coverage. So you're basically insuring your bike like you would a classic car, just no license plates required. Theft is 24/7 with an insured bicycle when it's parked at home, strapped to a car, it's on a flight, it's in use. You're able to make claims with guaranteed replacement cost on the newer bikes, and you're sheltering claims against an automotive or a home policy because, as mentioned before, it is standalone. And then you're able to claim damages. So similar to automotive, if you had a crash, this is like a collision policy. You're able to go into your local bike shop, have a repair estimate done on those damages, pay your deductible, and let the insurance company pick up the rest of the tab. So we've built a full service brokerage for cyclists, and beyond bike plan, we offer insurance broker services for the rest of your property. That could be a traditional home, tenant, and condo policy, or all those toys in your garage. Commercial liability for the various bike industry parts.
I worked with Cycling BC, and he was saying, if you join Cycling BC, this is what you're covered for. This guy will cover.
Yeah, we've kind of addressed the gaps to where, it's not a sanctioned event. How do we fill the rest so that cyclists have an easy entry point to 24/7 coverage? Definitely recommending the Cycling BC component if you're doing club rides, organized events, 100%. This is just that to complete the puzzle. Travel insurance is really where we started. That was a personal need for me. There was a point trying to race mountain bikes to where I was uninsurable outside of Canada. It was a scary time in the grassroots enduro mountain bike days. We work with event organizers, and the extended health is kind of that touch point to where beyond bike plan, if you need higher limits when it comes to traumatic injuries, short-term and long-term disability. And then, we can also work with the cyclists across BC if they're not on a group benefits plan, to have access to benefits. And then to demonstrate where we started, I thought it'd be fun to share a quick video of who's out there testing our policies on the global stage. Here's Matt McDuff, a professional freeride mountain bike athlete with Norco Bicycles. I'm hoping the audio works because it adds to the fun. Share computer sound.
Oh no! Wow. When you're following your dreams and your passions, there's no telling where it might take you. So don't let any of those what ifs cloud your judgment. Whether you're climbing a mountain, chasing the waves, or even flying off the top of 40-foot loops, we got your back. We're talking travel, life, disability, and even income protection is designed to limit the consequences for people like me and you. So, stay wild, my friends.
All right, so thank you again for attending today's discussion. We look forward to feedback from the cycling community as we continue to evolve our insurance solutions from a private insurance perspective. Here's how you can get in touch. We're primarily a digital brokerage, so visiting bicyclebroker.ca is the best route. Definitely reach out by phone as well. We're run by licensed brokers, available for calls and emails. And we have a nice new office space in Vancouver's Yaletown Heritage District. So if you do want to book an in-person appointment, by all means. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick. That was a very graphic video. It was great. So there are a number of questions coming in, some really great questions, and I'm just going to pass it right over to Mike so that we can start getting those answered by the panelists.
Yeah, so what we're at now is the question. So I'm hoping that what we tried to do in the webinar today is give you the full gambit. It's a very short time. We booked it on a lunch hour because we know everyone's busy and has busy lives. And we did get probably around 250 people on the call. We have 48 questions, which are a lot. So we'll try our best to answer some of them now. And what I'll do is, a lot of people didn't put the name of the the person they wanted to ask the question to, but I'll try my best. And let's see. Here's one. This is for Bill. Is Cycling BC membership required to get your insurance coverage?
Yes, it's part of the membership. So if you don't want to join Cycling BC, but you want to have the coverage that Cycling BC policy would offer, then I would suggest that you contact Nick. As Nick says, he's got coverage for individuals that don't want to join Cycling BC. But yes, that policy that we have is for Cycling BC members only.
Great, thank you. Okay. This one is, again, for Bill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of the speakers, because this is kind of where the questions lie. So this is, again, for you, Bill. I ride with a club under the auspices of Municipal Senior Center activity programs. We are not members of Cycling BC. What coverage is appropriate for participants in rides organized under such a program?
I would suggest you would want liability coverage for sure. Again, I mean, you can sanction your club with Cycling BC. I would suggest that you reach out to them. It doesn't cost a lot to have your club sanctioned. I would, and we can make the contact information available. But liability coverage, certainly. We've had a number of claims under the Cycling BC policy that have occurred during club rides. So, the most common scenario is, someone comes along on that group ride that is not a Cycling BC member, and there's an incident that occurs. So, somebody doesn't point out a pothole and there's an accident and the person breaks their hip, then that person turns around and sues every individual that was on that group ride, and then also sues the club. So the Cycling BC policy will provide coverage for the club itself as an entity when it's sued, and then also for every individual that's a Cycling BC member that's taking part in that ride. So I would certainly suggest that, if you don't want to join Cycling BC, that you reach out to a broker that can assist you with sport. Nick can do it, I can do it, but to have your club insured for liability, including participant liability. So that means that everybody taking part that's a member of your club has liability coverage. And I would suggest, David had the question, what's an appropriate limit? If we can't claim, I would still say 5 million. The Cycling BC limit is 10 million, but I would suggest 5. The suits coming from plaintiffs' counsel for head injuries right now. We had a claim a couple of years ago on a sport file that the demand for a concussion was $30 million. It settled at around 4 million, but that was an incident that took place in Vancouver. So I would certainly suggest that 5 million for that group would be appropriate, but I would look at $10 million limits.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill. So the next questions, since David was next in line on the presenters, I'm going to ask a few questions of David. So just make sure you unmute the microphone and we'll get ready to go. There you go. So this is a pretty tough question for David, and I'll just answer it live here. One thing that is unclear is what to do in case of an accident under ICBC no fault. Previously, aside from reporting to authorities and gather witnesses, one would contact a lawyer or similar to assess if the case was worth pursuing beyond the conversation with an ICBC adjuster. Is this still worth doing now, or are lawyers powerless?
I think lawyers are virtually powerless in the sense that our power rested in our ability to access a courtroom. Now, in complex catastrophic cases, certainly you may want to reach out to a lawyer to help guide you through the massive regulations associated with access to enhanced care, because of course you still and always did have no fault benefits regardless of liability. I don't know that nothing's changed there. You still have access to no fault benefits. If a car is involved, you still want to make an ICBC claim, but in simpler cases, there'd be no it'd just be completely uneconomic to try to find counsel to help you with it. And that's the problem, is that injured people, you know, it's hard enough to find your way through piles of regulations. It's really very difficult when you're injured.
Okay, thanks, David. And just a reminder, everyone, we have 50 questions up on the board, and we're not going to get through very many of those, but we will try to follow up with them after the webinar. So this is one more for David. Hopefully it's a bit of an easier question. It says, what does David Hay recommend commuter cyclists do to minimize the risk?
Be seen. Number one thing, be seen. And number two, do not make assumptions as to a driver's conduct. In other words, expect the worst at all times. And at night, absolutely light yourself up like a Christmas tree. The single greatest source of negligence is the failure to keep a proper lookout. Motorists, particularly older motorists, they don't see cyclists the way you think, the way you see motorists. So don't assume that's an equal exchange. So be seen, be cautious, expect the worst at all times, you know, and hope for the best.
That's perfect. That's exactly well said. So we're going to jump down to ICBC now. And this says, for the ICBC spokesperson, Paul, as a cyclist who doesn't have a car, has the no-fault insurance made things better or worse for me in case I get into a collision with a driver?
Yeah. So I guess again, and David and I will have differing viewpoints on this, but I think again, we have increased our contractual benefits significantly here. And the key for me is it's regardless of fault. So in situations where, you know, a cyclist is at fault for an incident and seriously injured, they now have the full suite of benefits available under enhanced care. Unlike, you know, in our previous product, if you are a cyclist and at fault, regardless of your injury, you're limited to pre-2019 at $150,000 and post-2019 at $300,000 of med rehab. And now we have a limitless product that's available regardless of fault.
And sorry, Paul, I'll just, and Mike, if I could, and I'll be the bad guy on this one for you, David. Like with all due respect, like how often is a cyclist, like as a vulnerable road user, at fault? Like I can't think it would be that often, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't unfortunately have any data in front of me, so I appreciate that, Bill. But again, they do, and there's lots of questions in the chat around the Motor Vehicle Act, and so right. You know, they are in there, and we don't have influence over what the rules of the roads are. So there are circumstances where cyclists are at fault, much like in an incident between two motor vehicles. Like there is, you know, in excess of 90% of cases, one person is found 100% liable. So it is relatively rare for there to be split liability. And so, you know, I can't speak specifically to the data around cyclists though.
I think it's important to point out, though, Paul, like setting that aside, these benefits, like enhanced care benefits, all that's changed, and I commend the changes in the sense that the pocket is now deeper for recovery, but they were always paid independent of fault to cyclists. I just don't want people to walk away thinking that's been a change, that now if you're an at-fault cyclist, you're entitled to these benefits, whereas under the old system, you were not. Because at-fault cyclists are insured persons within the meaning of the Act, and so they were always entitled to no-fault benefits. The only change has been that the amount's been increased. And there's a different, and there's some benefits that are new.
Yeah, not so. And just to highlight that, there's 34 net new benefits over the old accident benefit product. So there's a significant amount of additional benefits that didn't exist under accident benefits prior to May 2021. So it's not just the amounts, which again, I shared a little bit around, the limitless aspect of med rehab, but also the net new type of benefits are very significant compared to our old accident benefit product.
For everyone on the call, and Paul, maybe you could forward to me those additional benefits over the previous
absolutely
coverage. Is just a reminder for everyone on the call, on our BC Cycling Coalition website, we've set aside a page for this topic where we're going to be putting the webinar. ICBC has provided to Hub and I a list of sort of questions and answers that we've set to them in the last month or so, and we've posted those on there, and we'll continue to do that. So that's probably where we'll put a lot of these question and answers too. So one more for Paul, and it was kind of, let's see if I can find it here, because I got asked this a lot during the news stories that were out in the past. Are cyclist injuries covered by ICBC if there is an accident without a car being involved?
Yeah, no, thanks, Mike. I did want to touch on that one because there's a number of related ones as well. No, it must be part of an accident with a motor vehicle, and so that's the limitation. So if you are injured as a cyclist on your own while riding, it is not covered.
Okay. Boy, there are so many ICBC questions here, but we're running out of time, and I want to get to one for poor Nick, who had to take up the tail end there. So let me see if I can find one for Nick. Going all the way to the bottom here. Bear with me. Oh, this is actually, I'm going to ask Nick to answer this, but Bill and Paul, you can keep your ears up too, because I think, Paul, you sort of answered on the last one, but if there is a collision between two cyclists and one of them is seriously injured, is there any recourse outside of having standalone private coverage? Or, I mean, I could also add, or is that what private coverage is for?
Yeah, on my end, if we have the bike plan, which I went over, in place, that's going to respond. And then there's the traditional home, condo, and tenants policies that'll also kick in. Yeah, simple as that.
Yeah, and maybe a question for David. David, if there's a bike on bike incident, it's full tort, right?
Yes, it is. And
yes,
if there's no insurance, that doesn't mean there's no remedy.
Right.
The other cyclists may have assets, so it's just to be clear.
Yeah, so I would say,
it's helpful if they do have insurance, however, and I endorse, and I'm very pleased to see that a product of Nick's for third-party liability up to $1 million is only $30 a year. I think that's fantastic. I would suggest, like, for Mike, for the BCC members, like having your own personal liability is critically important. So, there are a lot of bike on bike wrecks. There are a lot of bike on pedestrian wrecks. And as David said, there's no fault for vehicles, but if it's bike on bike, it's full blown, legal tort. So you can be sued by that person. And again, I mean, no disrespect to David's profession. There are a lot of injury lawyers that can't do ICBC work any longer that would probably love to take a run at, a cyclist that had some deep pockets. So if, you run over somebody on your $15,000 Pinarello, I can expect that you're going to get, you may be facing down a lawsuit. So, speak with your home insurance broker about having appropriate limits. 1 million is not enough. It's only $1 million for Nick's policy, but if you have home insurance, generally to go from 2 million to 5 million, it costs you $150. So it's not prohibitively expensive to have liability coverage, but I would make sure that you've got it.
And I'm just going to ask thanks for that, Bill. And one more question. It's really quick, and it's actually not necessarily for Nick because he's more cycling, but it's more, I do get this asked a lot, and it's more for Paul. Do pedestrians have access, and I think we can add all vulnerable road users, so scooters, pedestrians, everyone else that's a vulnerable road users, do they have access to the same enhanced care benefits? So that's for
Sorry,
Paul.
just coming off mute there. Yeah. So, like with cyclists, they have the exact same care. So as long as they're involved in a motor vehicle accident with a motor vehicle, then they have access to the same benefits that a cyclist would.
Great. So I'm going to cut the questions out there because I know we're a little bit over time, and we were blown away by the interest in this subject. So for everybody, this doesn't end here. All the panelists here are continuing to be able to help BCCC answer questions and be resources for us, which means they're resources for our members. And we are looking just a bit of a touch base on the question about BCCC and insurance. So we're looking at doing some partnerships for insurance for our members. So keep your eye on our website and our notifications for that. And again, I wanted to thank all the panelists here for taking time out for your lunch. It's a super webinar topic, given the amount of people on the call and the 66 unanswered questions that we have. So again, thank everyone for coming on the call, and and hopefully have a good weekend. Hopefully the weather will dry up a little bit for us all across the province. Hopefully it's not snowing on anyone in the interior, and we'll have more of these. We'll keep an eye on what's of interest, what questions are coming into us. So keep an eye. I think we're going to do a big e-bike webinar in another couple of months. So maybe stay tuned for that. So Samantha, did you have anything else to say, or should?
No, that was great. Thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you for all the panelists, and thank you so much for all the guests that came on and spent your lunch hour with us on a Friday afternoon of Bike to Work Week or Go by Bike Week. So thank you so much, everyone.